Just a minute, I will share the screen. Okay, it will take a few seconds. Okay, so welcome back you all to this chapter on transpiration, the loss of water in the form of water vapors from the aerial parts of plant body. And today's topic of our discussion is the factors affecting the rate of transpiration in plant body. Just a minute. Yes. So there are two different types of factors which affect transpiration either positively or negatively. Either these factors affect transpiration directly or inversely. And these two factors are the external factors, that is the factors which are working outside the plant body. We call those factors as external factors or environmental factors, as well as there are the factors which are working inside the plant body, and these are called as internal factors. So external factors like light, temperature, then your wind velocity, then there comes atmospheric humidity, then there is atmospheric pressure, then there is concentration of carbon dioxide. These are some of the external factors, environmental factors, which affect the process of transpiration. And the internal factors, or the factors which are working inside the plant body, these are either structural factors, that is morphological factors of the plant body, or physiological factors related to the structure and function of plant body. These are called as internal factors working inside the plant body. And there are few internal factors which affect the process of transpiration, like stomatal frequency. Then there is the structural peculiarities of leaves. Then there is one more factor called as root shoot ratio. So these are the factors: light, temperature, wind velocity, atmospheric humidity, atmospheric pressure, CO2 concentration, external factors, and the frequency, stomatal frequency or stomatal index, structural peculiarities of leaves, and root shoot ratio are some of the internal factors. So we'll take them one by one. We'll discuss first the external factors, the factors which are working outside the plant body. And the first important factor is the light, which affect the process of transpiration. As we have studied, there is a close relationship between this factor, the light, and the mechanism of transpiration, the process of transpiration, the mechanism of opening and closing of stomata that we have studied with the help of Stewart's hypothesis and Leavitt theory in our previous lectures. And there we studied that in presence of light only the stomata become open and stomata are closed in absence of light. In darkness they are closed. So this factor is very important. If light is present, stomata are open, transpiration takes place. If light is absent, stomata are closed, transpiration is absent. So here it is having direct relationship, and it is also found that this factor, light, is having direct relationship with the process, with the rate of transpiration. That is, the rate of transpiration is directly proportional. You can see here, the rate of transpiration is directly proportional to the light intensity. When that means, when the light intensity increases, the rate of transpiration increases. When the light intensity decreases, the rate of transpiration decreases. And why it happens? Because the increased light intensity increases the permeability of cell membrane. The cell membrane permeability increases when the light intensity increases, and therefore the plant cells get more chance to release water vapors outside the cell due to cell membrane permeability. So that is one factor. And second factor is that the light, when light intensity increases, the temperature also increases. The temperature inside the plant body as well as the temperature outside the plant body, the surrounding temperature also increases. So here the light factor is directly related to the temperature factor, the second factor. But the important factor is light. When light is present, transpiration is present. When light is absent, transpiration is absent. And transpiration rate is, directly proportional to the light intensity. So that is about the first factor, the light. The second factor, the second external factor is temperature. And here, the rate of transpiration is again directly proportional to the temperature. Like the light, the rate of transpiration is having direct relationship with the temperature. That means with increase in temperature, the rate of transpiration increases and vice versa. So how it happens when the temperature increases, how it increases the rate of transpiration? It do so by increasing the rate of evaporation. You have studied transpiration is like the process of evaporation. So increased temperature increases the rate of evaporation because it heats up the leaves so that whatever water is present inside the mesophyll cell, they get transformed into water vapors, as well as the temperature increases, the temperature of the surrounding atmosphere surrounding the plant body also increases. So their humidity decreases. So here this factor temperature is having again relationship with the atmospheric humidity of the air. Increased temperature reduces the humidity. Therefore, the rate of transpiration increases. The plants get more chances to add water vapors into the outside atmosphere. So the transpiration rate is directly proportional to this factor also called as the temperature. But this temperature follows one rule that is known as Van Top's rule. You must have studied in your physics classes. Van Top's rule says that up to certain extent, for every 10 degrees Celsius rise in the temperature, the rate of reaction gets doubled. The rate of reaction means here the rate of evaporation gets doubled. The rate of transpiration gets doubled when there is increase in temperature of 10 degrees Celsius. That means if for 20 degrees Celsius rate is X, then for 30 degrees Celsius, it becomes doubled. So that is one top rule. But it is up to certain extent, because if the temperature is very high, if the atmospheric temperature is very high, or if it is very low temperature, then in that case also the rate of transpiration get reduced. The rate of transpiration decreases. That means plants require the temperature which is moderate, medium temperature range, which is suitable for other physiological functions of the plant also, that is necessary for transpiration to take place. Otherwise, there will be decrease in the rate of transpiration if temperature is very high or if it is very low temperature. So that is the relationship of this factor temperature with the process of transpiration in the plant body. The next important factor is wind velocity. Again, this factor is having direct relationship. Transpiration rate is directly proportional to the wind velocity. Up till now we have studied the rate of transpiration is directly proportional to the light. The rate of transpiration is directly proportional to the temperature. And here also the rate of transpiration is directly proportional to the wind velocity. If the wind is not flowing, if it is stagnant, then the rate of transpiration is normal. But if the wind velocity increases, the rate of transpiration increases. How or why? Because it removes the water vapors which are present in the surrounding atmosphere. So plants get again more chances to add its own water vapors into the surrounding atmosphere because they are blown away by the moving wind. So that is another positive factor which increase the process. But if yes, this now we have studied, discussed, the increased wind velocity decreases the humidity of outside atmosphere. So again here wind velocity factor is directly or indirectly related to the humidity factor, atmospheric humidity. Increased wind velocity decreases humidity. Increased temperature decreases the humidity. So both temperature as well as wind velocity, when they are increased, they decrease the humidity of outside atmosphere. So they do so by removing the water vapors from the surrounding area of the plant body, and plants get more chances to add its own water vapors into the surrounding atmosphere. So the rate of transpiration increases in that case. But if the wind velocity is very high, 40 to 50 kilometers per hour, then in that case, the rate of transpiration reduces, because up to 30 to 40 or 20 to 30 kilometer per hour is sufficient, or it is a moderate wind velocity for increasing the rate of transpiration. But if the velocity is very high, in that case, the stomata get closed, and due to closure of stomata, ultimately there is reduction in the rate of transpiration. So wind velocity should be moderate, otherwise it will decrease the rate of transpiration. So that is the relationship of this factor, wind velocity, with the process of transpiration. The next factor that is atmospheric humidity. Just now we have discussed this factor is directly or indirectly related to the temperature as well as the wind velocity. When there is increase in temperature, when there is increase in wind velocity, there is decrease in the atmospheric humidity. Now, what is humidity? Humidity is the amount of water vapors which are present in the air. And what is relative humidity? It is the amount of water vapors which are present in the air and the amount which is needed to saturate it, to make it 100%. That is called as relative humidity. So relative humidity is never 100%. It is fluctuating. So here, see the relationship. Up till now, in the first three factors, light, temperature, and wind velocity, we studied that the rate of transpiration is directly proportional. But here, the rate of transpiration is inversely proportional. You can see here, the rate of transpiration is inversely proportional to the atmospheric humidity. This means that when the atmospheric humidity increases, the rate of transpiration decreases. And when atmospheric humidity decreases, the rate increases. How it happens? You see here, there is simple process of diffusion which involve diffusion pressure and diffusion pressure deficit. Now we know that water vapors are released outside the plant through the stomata. So there is the movement of these water vapors from the inside atmosphere of the plant towards the outside atmosphere of the plant. So this inside to outside movement is always from the region of higher concentration of water vapors to the region of lower concentration of water vapors. So if there are many water vapors already in the atmosphere, then this movement is restricted. But if the if the concentration of water vapors in the atmosphere, outside atmosphere, is less, are you getting? That means air is dry or humidity is less. In that case, plants get more chance to add its water vapors into the outside atmosphere. So there is a inverse proportion. There is an inverse relation between this factor, atmospheric humidity, and the process of transpiration that we have studied. Another factor is atmospheric pressure. Now, this factor is again having inverse relationship like atmospheric humidity. The rate of transpiration is inversely proportional to the atmospheric pressure. And we have studied, we know, you must be knowing that as we go upward from the seashore, from the sea level, as we go up to high altitude, then the atmospheric pressure goes on decreasing. It goes on decreasing as we go upward from the seashore. That means at the seashore, at the sea level, atmospheric pressure is high, but at the high altitude, like top of the mountains, their atmospheric pressure is less. So in that case, if atmospheric pressure is less, then the rate of transpiration is high. So this suggests that the plants which are growing on the mountains or high altitude regions, they have high transpiration rate, and therefore they try to develop some xerophytic characters in them. But we also know that there is a low temperature at high altitude region, at mountains. There is a decrease in the temperature also. So there is some sort of compensation between the decreased atmospheric pressure and low temperature. So due to this compensation, the plants grow very easily at such a high altitude region. But the important point is that this factor is again inversely proportional to the transpiration rate. That is. Then CO2 concentration. This is another external factor or environmental factor. When carbon dioxide concentration of the outside atmosphere increases, then we know, as in case of acidic pH, then it decreases the rate of transpiration. So this factor is again inversely proportional. So up till now we studied the first three factors, that is the light, temperature, and wind velocity. These are directly proportional to transpiration, whereas the latter three factors, that is atmospheric humidity or atmospheric pressure, or this one, carbon dioxide concentration, these factors are having inverse relationship. If the carbon dioxide concentration increases, the rate of transpiration decreases. That we studied, because we have studied that carbon dioxide acts as an anti-transpirant substance. It is one of the anti-transpirants which reduce the process of transpiration. So ultimately, it will decrease the rate of transpiration. Rahul, Mute, mute yourself. Okay, the internal factors, the factors which are working inside the plant body, and the first factor is stomatal frequency. We know stomatal transpiration is the main type of transpiration, and when stomata are open, then transpiration takes place, that we studied. So the main factor which is important here is the number of stomata. If the number of stomata is more, then the rate of transpiration will obviously more. It will increase. The rate will increase if many stomata are there. And this number of stomata per unit area of lip surface, the number of stomata per unit area of lip surface is known as stomatal frequency. But it is also found that the smaller plants, or the plants which are having smaller leaves, they are having more stomatal frequency as compared to the larger leaves. So this will lead to some sort of confusion. So scientist Salisbury coined another term, and that is called as stomatal index, which is called as designated by capital letter capital I, stomatal index, that is given by one formula called as I is equal to capital S upon E plus S into 100. This is the formula for stomatal index, where capital I is stomatal index, capital S is the number of stomata per unit area, that is stomatal frequency, divided by capital E, and this capital E is the number of epidermal cells surrounding the stomata per same unit area, that is called as stomatal index. And this stomatal index will give the clear-cut picture about the relationship of this factor with the process of transpiration, internal factor. The next factor comes into consideration, that is structural peculiarities of leaves. Certain plants, not all, but certain plants are adapted to resist, to decrease the rate of transpiration by developing certain characters. They may undergo certain sort of modifications, as in case of xerophytes you have studied. There is change in size, shape, and structure due to change in function, that is called as modification. And such modifications are like they may develop thick cuticle, or there is development of multiple epidermis, or formation of sunken stomata. We have studied the plants which are growing in a very you say very sunlighty condition. They develop thick cuticle, whereas the plants growing in shade, they develop thin cuticle, because cuticle is meant for resisting the rate of transpiration. Multiple epidermis, many layers of epidermis are formed. That is another structural modification to resist the rate of transpiration. Sunken stomata, the stomata are formed in a deep cavities so that the rate of evaporation gets reduced. So that is another modification by certain plants to resist transpiration. So these are some of the structural peculiarities of leaves. Again, there is reduction in leaf size, as in case of pinus, the leaves become, needle shaped to resist transpiration, or in case of opuntia, the leaves may become modified into spiny structures. That way we have studied, that is known as phylloclade in case of opuntia and xerophyte. So all these are modifications to reduce the rate of transpiration. So these factors also are having that direct relationship to reduce the rate of transpiration. Internal factors, structural factors, or morphological factors which reduce the rate of transpiration. Another important factor is root-shoot ratio. This factor is again directly proportional to the rate of transpiration, or the transpiration rate is directly proportional to the root-shoot ratio. That means if the root-shoot ratio is high, the rate of transpiration is high. If the root-shoot ratio is less, the transpiration is less. For example, if we compare the two plants, sorghum, jowar, sorghum bicolor, with your maize plant, corn plant, zea maize, then in that case we see the sorghum with its extensive root system is having high rate of transpiration as compared to the maize plant, because sorghum has a high root-shoot ratio, therefore it has high rate of transpiration than the maize plant as when it is compared with the sorghum plant. So high root-shoot ratio suggests that there is high rate of transpiration. So Okay, so this is the summary of the factors which we studied. External factors, we studied 6 factors in all: light, temperature, wind velocity, atmospheric humidity, atmospheric pressure, CO2. And we also studied internal factors like stomatal frequency and stomatal index, structural peculiarities of leaves, and root shoot ratio. Here in this, we studied that light, temperature, and wind velocity. These are having direct relation. The rate of transpiration is directly proportional to light, directly proportional to temperature, directly proportional to wind velocity, whereas the rate of transpiration is inversely proportional to atmospheric humidity. It is inversely proportional to atmospheric pressure. It is inversely proportional to carbon dioxide concentration. Here we studied stomatal frequency and stomatal index, the number of stomata per unit area, and the term given by Salisbury, I is equal to S upon E plus S into 100. Structural peculiarities of some of the leaves of some of the special plants, xerophytic plants especially, resisting the rate of transpiration. And we also discussed about root shoot ratio, the internal factor, which is again directly proportional to transpiration. The rate of transpiration is directly related to this factor, root shoot ratio. Usually in the exam, a short note is asked on the factors affecting transpiration, or they may ask give the external factors which affect transpiration, or they may ask give the internal factors which affect the process of transpiration plants. So you have to give that account. These are some of the references, books, text, as well as reference books, and these are some of the internet sites, websites. You can go and refer to those sites. Okay, thank you for patiently listening. Okay, I'll stop share. Okay, is there any question? Any question? No question. Okay.